That's one win in the books for South Carolina. The Gamecocks knocking off the Tar Heels for the second time in 3 years to open a football season. And they get the job done 17-13. Many would think that the Heels played the better first half, but South Carolina made the bigger plays, especially on defense. We bring in William Gunter, Fox Sports, Columbia and Greenville, South Carolina. William, hey, it's always a good chat with you. And now we get to see some actual football and respond to it. So nice win out of the Gamecocks, even though it wasn't exactly the prettiest thing all the time.
No, I think it was expected, Mark. I think that was what was expected. You had a quarterback making his first ever start in Connor. He played like it in the first quarter. I think he opened 0 of 4 to start the game, and then he seemed to gain confidence as the game went along and suffered a little. But South Carolina is going to have to rely on the running game all year long. David Williams, Brandon White, clearly Sean Carson, 8-yard run to put him ahead 17-13. And I think if you were a South Carolina fan, that third quarter is what terrified you, because Steve Spurrier, for some reason, thought that the running game had been outlawed. He went away from it. He just started throwing the ball all over the field, and it could have very well cost them the game. I thought South Carolina actually won this game. Maybe some offensive coaching question marks that they'll have going into week 2.
And I think that's the temptation for a guy that knows the pass offense that much and that well, that he loves to get exotic, even if the players and the personnel don't call for it in the situation. At times there's that temptation to, man, I really want to trick the defense and do some things here and see what I can match up. Let's start with Connor Mitch, 9 for 22, did not throw an interception. That's very important. 1 touchdown, 122 yards passing. He got you some valuable yardage in the running game, converted a couple third downs with his legs. Your first game assessment of your new quarterback.
He's going to have to grow, obviously. And listen, he had a couple drops. There were 2 drops that really stood out, a swing pass to a running back, and then he hit a tight end in the chest one time that should have been caught. So there were 2 in particular. He did something that I think Gamecock fans wanted to see. They were simply threw the ball on plays that weren't there. I think that's got to make you happy. He has to get better. He has to get better. Let's not sugarcoat the situation and say that this was some great performance, but he was playing in a neutral site game down the road from him. To me, I'll tell you what we'll talk about this a little bit. South Carolina's got an issue at wide receiver that I don't know if they're going to be able to have some freshmen that did. But I think the thing I took coming out of this game, bigger than Connor Mitch, because I think Connor Mitch can be fine. I think it's going to be that he is really lacking out at the wide receiver position.
So let's talk about the running game. Sean Carson really opened things up with the long touchdown run from 48 yards. That was his first attempt of the game. Senior, 4 carries, 75 yards. Brandon Wiles, David Williams, a couple names that we're more familiar with and expected to carry the bulk of the load from the backfield. 14 for 51 and 10 for 42. And Connor Mitch, as we mentioned, contributed to the ground game as well, but they got away from it in the third quarter, as you mentioned. But when they were committed to the run, how do you think they fared?
They had a ton of success running behind the right side, which is considered the inexperienced side. That's Mason Zandy, who made his first start ever on the offensive line, and Will Sport. The left side features a future NFL tackle and Brandon Shell, and a veteran in Mike Matulis. And a lot of those runs, including the Sean Carson run, came going behind that right side. Again, I've said it on my radio show consistently. Steve Spurrier or somebody needs to look at the game plan that was utilized in Steven Garcia's junior year, which featured about 50 runs a game and about 20 passes. I really think had if South Carolina kept running in the third quarter, this doesn't come down to the things. They went away from that, obviously, but you just ran the numbers, and I haven't seen them yet. I was kind of trying to pull them up. I think what you just mentioned, somebody ran for a 4.2 yard per carry average. David White, but it sounded like all 3 of them obviously had over 4 yards a carry average. And if you do the total numbers on the 4 guys, I think they were close to 5 yards a carry mark. To me, that running game is is what's going to have to get South Carolina a lot of wins this year as they continue to develop.
Well, especially when you see a first game effort and try to gauge, okay, how successful were we considering the opponent? So if we played well on defense, for example, was it us or was it an anemic offense? Versus 5 games into the season, you have a feel for how good the opponent is. So let's turn to the defense. William, you look at the run of Elijah Hood. What he was able to do in the ground game, 13 for 138. He was a guy that we expected to be one of the better backs in the ACC. How do you feel about the run defense for South Carolina, considering those numbers?
For a game one, you got 11. Well, I always equate football to NASCAR. You put your team out there for 4 hours. You put them back in the shop for 5 days. You retool, you fix that engine, you figure out what works, and then you put them back out there on Saturday and you see how it works. It wasn't a great performance. I think there's a lot of things with South Carolina tonight that we're going to say, okay, they got the victory and there was positives, but man, there has to be, when you consider Georgia down the line, when you consider LSU, when you consider Tennessee, Texas A&M, so forth and so on, there has to be improvement. But I think if you're a South Carolina fan, the fact that they shut them out in the second half, they had 4 sacks tonight, they had 3 turnovers tonight, tackling at times was still, but I think you come out of that thinking, okay, if we can build on what we saw tonight, if John Hoke can take the next few days and improve the defense, and if the defense can get better, and we're not going to see an offense that runs that type of hurry up, which is tough to defend, this defense can be pretty good by the middle of the season, especially late in the season.
Yeah, Skai Moore, if you don't know about Skai Moore, then you're probably not much of a college football fan, because this kid's been on the scene since a freshman. He's played linebacker, he's played safety. The 2 huge interceptions, 10 total tackles in this game, may have saved the game when it's all said and done. And considering, I pick on the run defense because of the Elijah Hood statistics, but 13 points given up to an offense with a senior dual threat quarterback who's one of the probably 15 best quarterbacks in the country, had a really outstanding season last year. Weapons all over the place for the Tar Heels. They are going to score points against just about anyone they play. And the bottom line, 13 points on the board.
You're exactly right. And let's be honest, this game tonight was as much about confidence and getting over last year as it was anything else. I mean, think about the end of the game. North Carolina's, at the 3-yard line, a chance to go up by 3. South Carolina not only gets a stop, but they get a sack. That was something they couldn't do last year, and then obviously forced the turnover at the end, and then they get a first down to win the game. Again, there are holes. You're right, 13 for 138. I think Elijah Hood's going to be very, very good, and I think there will be questions about Larry Fedora on the 3-yard line not having Elijah Hood in the game at the very end to line up and run it straight up. But you know what, Mark? No one should be expecting South Carolina to compete for a spot in the college football. Should be expecting South Carolina to win the SEC East. This is a transition year for them, and this is a year where you have to build from game 1 to game 2 and game 2 to game 3 and so forth and so on, where you're playing your best football in November. And if tonight was the starting point and they move forward, I thought.
And unlike most of the people that we're going to be comparing them against, the SEC East, Mizzou, Georgia, Tennessee, and the like, they played a quality opponent in week 1, and they get the job done regardless of the style points. William Gunter joining us from Fox Sports, Greenville and Columbia, South Carolina. William, hey, we wanted a recap right after this game was over, and you delivered. We appreciate the time, man.
Mark, I always love doing it. Maybe we make it a Sunday night thing or something, because I tell you what, there's a ton of storylines in the SEC that I have found intriguing. Grayson Lambert at Georgia is wild out of my imagination. I know you got a lot of people to get to, but it was a great game tonight. College football is back. You got Michigan and Utah in the background. I got it on my TV. We're about to go smoke some cigars and hang out and enjoy college football, because that's what it's all about.
Yeah, there's that first stogie.
That's
you
right.
Get that victory cigar. That's nice to get on opening night. In South Carolina, hey, they lay it all on the line in regards to, hey, let's play a quality opponent. We'll do it on Thursday night. It's now 3 consecutive years, and for good or bad, it's now 2-1 in those 3 meetings against now North Carolina, Texas A&M, and now North Carolina again. Hey, William, we'll catch up with you soon.
Sounds great, Mark. You have a great night. Enjoy the weekend.